If someone has the kernel of an idea of what they want to do for that business, they know what that business in its basic terms would be, I think probably the most useful thing to do would be to spend time studying similar businesses. Not only can you learn what those businesses, how they measure themselves, what metrics they use to evaluate their success, their progress, but you can also probably, with the resources that are available on the internet, you can learn about their path to from where they were to where they came. And I think particularly for someone starting a new business, understanding the path that entrepreneurs who had similar goals, the path that they took, could be extremely valuable. You'll see things that worked for them, you'll see things that didn't work, and that could really help chart your course in a way that is hopefully quicker and involves less failures. When structuring goals for your business, it might be helpful to consider a mnemonic that I've heard kicked around several times, and that is that your goals should be SMART. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and involving some sort of time element. So specific really means that your goal shouldn't be something general like we're going to improve our reputation among our clients. You need to identify very specific things that you can measure to determine if you have met that goal or not. So that's specific. Measurable, they need to be something that you could put a number on or say it's been achieved or not been achieved in very real terms, not in any fluffy terms. Achievable, if you set goals that are not achievable, you're going to be disheartened. So set goals that you can get to. They should be stretches, but they should be stretches that are achievable with hard work. Relevant, they obviously need to be relevant to what your end game for the business is. So an example would be if you're trying to improve sales or a volume of sales, for instance. I've heard a story of someone who had a goal of just every day they were going to distribute 20 business cards. Well, that's a little bit fluffy and not necessarily relevant. Relevant should be something specific, like we are going to obtain 10 more orders for each of these products each day of the next month, what have you. Something like that that really is going to advance the business. And then timeliness. Goals should have a time limit on them. Otherwise, you never really know if you've achieved them or not. So put a time limit on it. Most important, if you've missed the mark on your goal, the most important thing is to truly understand why. So one, I think an honest investigation into why the goal wasn't achieved is important. That investigation probably should involve someone other than yourself. I would involve but several other people and get their perspectives as to why that goal probably wasn't achieved, because you will find that the views of folks are different, and there's probably a lot of truth in all of them, and it's going to be important in order to develop a good understanding of what happened to get those inputs. Once you've done that, you need a plan. So develop a plan to achieve that goal. And as with the investigation as to why things weren't achieved, that plan probably could benefit from the input of some other folks too. It's an inquiry where one simply asks the question, can I do that business? Can I do it legally? Can it make money? Are all the inputs that I need available at costs that would allow me to do it profitably? Are all the essential elements of the business achievable and available? Are there any permits that I need to do that that are not available? Is it physically possible to do what I want to do? It's really those very basic questions that form the foundation of a feasibility study. And those things really shouldn't require that you hire someone special to investigate. A feasibility study does not need to be an expensive effort. It's something you can do in a basic form. You can do it yourself. It really is about identifying what are the essential elements of a business, and then asking and answering the question whether those essential elements are achievable. For a business to maintain sustained profitability really requires constant study. I think a lot of people don't realize that, particularly in the times we live now, that the business environment changes so rapidly that if a business wants to be successful over a long term, it really needs to be constantly studying itself as well as studying its market. So it needs to be asking questions about, are there better ways that it can do what it does? Are there cheaper ways it can do what it does? What do our customers want? What do our clients want? What are our competitors doing? Those kinds of this constant analysis, constant monitoring, constant inquiry really is essential if a business is going to be successful over the long term. If someone has a great idea for a business, but they don't feel like they're strong with numbers, my advice to them would be that they need to buckle down and get a little stronger with the numbers. Unfortunately, you're not going to understand how your business really works unless you understand the numbers. But this isn't something they should be afraid of. Most businesses are not rocket science. You need to understand the cost of what it takes to provide your product or service, what you're bringing in on the other end, as well as the other costs that may be associated with it, taxes and things like this. At the end of the day, it's generally a lot of plus and minus, not a lot of fancy math. If you have advisors that are throwing around complex words and concepts that are difficult to understand, you should treat those advisors with some real skepticism, because at the end of the day, the math that you need to know to conduct a good business is really simple math, but it's essential. It may be that persons who are starting a new business are a little intimidated by the concept of financial reporting and a little afraid about tax reporting. They shouldn't be. Both those functions are absolutely necessary, and a small amount of attention to them in the early days really can help smooth the path if that business is successful. When it comes to financial reporting, that information is going to be essential for a business owner to really understand their business. So it should be something that they're doing all the time anyways. And it will help. So not only will it enable them to provide good information, for example, to a bank if they want to get a loan, or to an investor if they're looking for an investor, but it will fundamentally enable them to understand what is going on in their business. So they shouldn't be afraid of it, and it is essential. When it comes to tax reporting and compliance, a lot of young businesses, fortunately, aren't going to have to pay a lot of taxes, because you have to have some profits in order to pay income tax for the company. Now, there are payroll taxes and things that they need to pay attention to, and they do need to track their information and make tax returns to state and the federal government, as well as potentially local governments. Unfortunately, I think that's just it's a necessity. It may not be fun, but it's something that has to be done. And getting ahead of that early in the game is going to save a lot of time and heartburn later on. Here at CIRI, we also sponsor a forum called Takatnu Forum, where we bring businesses within our region together, hopefully to encourage development of those businesses with each other, and certainly entrepreneurs are welcome to join that forum. CIRI is also a sponsor of Launch Alaska, which is essentially an incubator for small, very, very early stage businesses. And so we do specific funding and encouragement of new businesses within the state. But perhaps even as important is that we contribute to the community. And businesses can't really live without a community. It's the people that you need to do your business. It's the institutions that are required to do a business, the legal framework that allows a contract to be enforceable, the financing institutions that can make funds available to businesses. All those things are parts of the community. And so by supporting and helping create a healthy community, the native corporations really do create an environment that enables businesses to be born and grow. So I would encourage someone with that new concept, that new great idea, to really take a deep breath, sit back, ask those hard questions, and then have someone else answer them with you too. Because sometimes the passion that someone has for that idea really is going to blind them to the honest answers that are out there about whether that thing should be a business, and even if it should be, what the best way to go about it is. So in those types of cases, I think the input of others, particularly if there are others who have done similar things or been entrepreneurs, really would be remarkably valuable.